Tonight, our special report on the homeless problem in New York City. We'll hear a homeless woman's personal story that'll really drive home what's at stake. And after months of slamming his Republican competition, well, today, Donald Trump just signed a unity pledge to the Grand Old Party. We're going to tell you what it means and follow the latest drama that is the Trump campaign. And then a big victory for Tom Brady and the Patriots in Deflategate. You heard me right. The suspension gone. All 4 games Brady will play, but the story is far from over. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we begin tonight with the homeless in New York City. And even the mayor is acknowledging it's a problem not going away, but only getting worse. It's also getting a lot of attention. It's becoming a big political problem for Mayor de Blasio, and we're going to get into all of that a little bit later. But first, tonight, a first-hand look at what's going on out on the streets. Now, we were there as police started trying to keep the area near Penn Station clear. As we watched exclusively, this security official is unsuccessful in his attempt to get a man to move on. Finally, he calls for help. And seconds later, an NYPD squad with special training arrives. Now, this encounter, it ended without incident, but that's not always been the case. And this plays out day after day. And our own Dominic Carter, he was there to see the situation play out firsthand. Dom?
Richard, as you said, these specially trained officers, they showed tremendous sensitivity while we were there and actually witnessed this to dealing with the homeless. They are a unique unit that we got to see up close. What we are seeing play out with the homeless in New York City is not going back in time to 1970, but Richard, our snapshot was just 24 hours ago. And the remarkable story of one Staten Island woman where there were no drugs involved, she just fell on very hard times. We want to warn you up front that you may find some of the images we are about to show you very disturbing, and they may be tough for little children to look at. It is a grim reality, a problem that may be creeping back up in devastating numbers. In broad daylight, indicators in full public view that people are falling through the social safety net. Whether it's on the subway or across New York City, like 7th Avenue and 33rd Street, right here at Penn Station and Madison Square Garden, there are visible signs of what some describe as an increasing homeless problem. Perhaps this is a direct result of the cheap synthetic marijuana that's sweeping the country and increasing visits to psychiatric hospital emergency rooms called K2. But the issue of being homeless has a different face and a far different component.
I never thought I would be homeless. You know, I came from a good family, good upbringing. And sometimes life just happens.
The world of 37-year-old, one-time Staten Island resident Stacy Toot and her 7-year-old daughter Gracie came crashing down 3 months ago in June. Did you ever think that this would happen to you?
Never in a million years.
She saw the bureaucracy up close, where shelter requires recertification every 10 days. Being homeless, what does that mean to you?
Homeless means I don't have a permanent roof over mine and my child's head. That you don't know what's going to happen the next day, or like a month ago, every 10 days. It's psychologically, it really messes up your head.
You got to trust me, all right?
I trust you.
Because I'm getting a better job.
Let me see if I can find you an application for our internship.
There was no salary, but there was a way to another place.
Did Mom leave because of me?
Mom left because of Mom.
Sadly, Toot shares something in common with the real-life story of San Francisco salesman Chris Gardner, played in the Hollywood movie by Will Smith.
I need the rest. I can't wait anymore. I need you out of here in the morning.
Dad, where are we going?
I don't know. Not a simple pass-fail. You're not quitting on us yet, are you?
In pursuit of happiness, Smith was homeless and stayed overnight with his child at a public transportation restroom. In Toot's case, this was no Hollywood movie.
And then they, in turn, said to me, we can't help you. You know, we think you have another place to go. And they turned us away.
So the city agency
Yes, sir.
that is supposed to help you, the last resort agency,
Yes.
you're telling us they turned their back on you?
Mm-hmm. At that time, yes.
And then what?
Me and my daughter had to leave. We wound up staying in a restaurant overnight for 24 hours until the coalition opened up in the morning at 9 o'clock.
You stayed in a public restaurant overnight
Mm-hmm.
in the city of New York.
Yes.
With all the money that's spent on dealing with the homeless issue, they deemed you ineligible with a child,
Yes.
and you had to stay in a restaurant.
Yes.
Toot worked in Cape May, New Jersey, but fell on hard times when her weekly rent went up and her paycheck as a clerk at a local Wawa convenience store didn't cut it anymore. Making matters worse, staying with her sister did not work out. She found herself back in New York City. How bad are the shelters?
The one I was at in Brooklyn was terrible. It was dirty. There were roaches. Mice crawling in bed with my child. It was terrible. The one I'm at right now in the Bronx is like a kingdom compared to the other ones. The people are professional. There's not fighting in the hallways, you know. It's nice. I feel safer there with my daughter.
Just 9 months ago, in December, a record high of more than 60,000 homeless adults and children were sleeping in shelters, according to a daily count kept by the Department of Homeless Services. In July of this year, each night, according to the Coalition for the Homeless, it was down to 58,000 homeless people daily, including 13,000 homeless families with 23,000 homeless children. What was the lowest of low for you?
I would say waiting for the bus to pick us up about 2 o'clock in the morning while my daughter's sleeping on her book bag outside.
Wait, I don't understand. When you say waiting for the bus at 2 a.m.
To take us to a shelter.
from the location in the Bronx?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so,
And I'm looking at my daughter. I'm like, is this even real? You know, I'm supposed to protect her. She's supposed to have a better life than this. And as a mother, it's hard.
at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, you can be there all night till 4 in the morning. Whenever that van or that bus comes to pick you up to take you to where you're going, either it's going to be a 10-day placement or it's going to be an overnight. If you get an overnight, you're just going to go to a hotel for 2 hours because they make you leave by, I think, 6:30 or 7 o'clock, just for you to get on a train or a bus to go back to PATH and try and do it all over again.
So it's a vicious cycle.
It's terrible. Terrible. And it's so, you got to see all the families that go into this building. I mean, it's always packed. You know, the city has to do something because there's too many families that are homeless.
There are people watching you right now that will say, hey, you bleeding heart liberal reporters, you go for anything. You know, if these people didn't want to be homeless, they wouldn't be homeless.
That's not true. You know, homelessness isn't what you see on the movies, somebody on the corner panhandling for money or somebody that's doped up on drugs. That's not true. It's families. It's single-parent households, you know, which is one parent, and sometimes it's not easy to make the rent. When you're responsible for the rent in this little life, it's not easy, you know, so sometimes situations are out of your hands.
And that returns me back to the Hollywood movie of The Pursuit of Happiness.
You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it.
What is your dream?
My dream is to finally get me and my daughter back into our own place again. I can go back to work. She can settle down. And after once this is all settled, I want to go back to school and I want to maybe be an advocate and help, people like me, to be honest, fight paths. Because I want that place.
Fight the city.
Yep, I want that place exposed.
The good news, Richard, Mrs. Toot tonight, with the help of the Coalition for the Homeless, is in a Bronx shelter where she feels safe with her daughter. And even better news, she was recently found eligible for shelter. The bad news, Richard, that's just one of 60,000 stories. 59,999 other stories of people where every 10 days, you have to be recertified for shelter. And if the city of New York finds there's anyone else that you can stay with, you are found ineligible for shelter. You are not allowed to stay there, and you're on your own.
In the richest country in the world, in the greatest city on the planet. All those shots of the homeless, sleeping on streets, passed out wherever, I figured, this was what we call foul footage in the business.
No.
You got that in one day.
No, well, I didn't get it. Our shooter, Stephen, who did an excellent job on this, working on this. Richard, sadly, to show you how bad the problem of the homeless is in New York, this was just 2 locations that we went to yesterday. Just 2. And
in one day.
In one day. We wanted to be fair to the city of New York and Mayor de Blasio. So we didn't go to the encampments in East Harlem and so on, where you could find 60, 70, 80, right there by Metro North. We didn't go to that location. All we did yesterday, around this time, a little earlier, was go to Penn Station, Madison Square Garden, and then we went to 28th Street and 9th Avenue Park. Just 2 locations in the entire city. Now magnify the homeless issue times each borough times each location.
And there it is. Dom, great job. Thank you. Stay with me. When we come back, we're going to talk to our panel here about what is going on. Plus, we'll talk to people on the street to get their perspective of the homeless problem. This is a political story as well. This is a challenge for this mayor, what he can, what he can't do, what he should, what he shouldn't do. We'll get into all that straight ahead.